Hey, what's up guys, welcome back to another Clash Show video. Thank you so much for joining in, and today I'm going to talk about some tips and tricks for the 2 vs 2 draft challenge. Now this is as usual the single draft challenge, but then now you can select a teammate, so make sure you're picking a teammate who's with you, close with you, so that you can probably discuss and just make sure you're getting the victories. In that way at least you have a higher chance of getting those 9 victories, I suppose. So I'll be telling you some tips. Before that, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you do that right now, and make sure you click on the bell notification icon, and let's get right into some tips right now. First off, you need to keep in mind that what card you're going to give for the opponent. So the big thing when it actually comes to draft challenge is you might as well face in some cards like the minions and arrows. So in that case, I highly recommend you take the arrows, because that is a counter for the minions. So picking the counter for a card is really important. If you take the minion and if you give the arrows, the opponent is going to put the arrows in. That way again you're not at all going to get any value out of those minions. So always pick a counter card rather than any normal card. So again, for some other cards like the musketeer and the fireball, pick the fireball. Always take counters for your cards. Those are the things you actually will be requiring the most. So the first tip, make sure you're picking up counters rather than the other card. So the next tip would be to pick up any of these cool cards which are over here, which I'll be specifying right now. So these cards are basically the cards which mostly the opponent might not draft, so that's something you might as well keep in mind. So the Goblin Barrel, the Graveyard, Inferno Dragon, Sparky, the Elite Barbarian, Inferno Tower, Balloon, Princess, and then the Goblin Gang. These are the cards which the opponent would choose. I mean, opponent would not have a counter for. That's what I mean. Well, that's what I mean. So if you have any of these cards, say you have the Goblin Barrel, and if the opponent is not having a log or the arrows, instead you're having it when you drafted it, then you have a much better chance, because you have a counter for the Goblin Barrel, which is really nice. So you again are gonna get some additional damage with it. So cards again like the Spare Goblins, not the Spare Goblins. What is this? Goblin Barrel, Graveyard, Inferno Dragon, Sparky, Elite Barbarians, Inferno Tower, Goblin Gang, Balloon, and the Princess. Make sure you're taking in these cards, because most of the time you probably won't have counters for it. I mean, well, the opponents wouldn't have counters for it. So the next thing you need to keep in mind is pick up some win conditions. Win conditions are those cards which are going to do at least a decent bit of damage to that tower. So troops that at least are gonna get to the tower and do some damage. So Golem, Balloon, Hog Rider, Giant, Royal Giant, Goblin Barrel, Graveyard, Lava Hound, Elite Barbarians, and then there are so many more. But then these are the main win conditions. So pick these guards out, because they have a really great chance. So just in one case, if these guys just connect to the tower, then the tower is gonna be in some big threat. So make sure you're picking up cards like these. These are really important. So tip number 4, again, take in some spells, because in some cases it's going to be a draw and it's going to go on forever. You're not going to give up, your opponent is not going to give up. In that case, definitely spells are going to come into play. So make sure you're picking up spells. Of course, there's just these 4 spells which you need to keep in mind: Rocket, Fireball, Poison, and the Lightning spell. So make sure you're picking up any of these 4. Don't just give them away, because there are some cases where you can give them away. Like if you're gonna face a musketeer and then a fireball, you might as well take the musketeer rather than the fireball. In that case, don't do that, because you might get the fireball, and if the opponent and you are just not able to move at all, in that case you can just put the fireball and keep cycling it in order to get more damage. So coming to tip number 5, make sure you're selecting a balanced deck. Now of course you just have 4 of those cards to select, but then you can definitely select the various kind of categories in cards. You need a defensive building, of course. When you're drafting, if you can actually see a defensive building, make sure to take that right away, because that's really going to help a lot. You take a spell, you take a good air troop that's really good, or maybe a support troop, and maybe a win condition. So these 4 cards can really help: a defensive building, a spell, a support card for your win condition, and a win condition. So these are the 4 things you might as well concentrate. But then again, you just have 4 cards, and if you just keep concentrating on them, you probably won't get the best deck. So just keep this in mind. Just don't go really hard on this, but then if you can actually get that, that should be really cool. So another thing to keep in mind is that you might see the favorite cards in the draft. In that case, just don't take that. For suppose you're taking the Prince and the Skeleton Army, definitely take the Skeleton Army. Just because you like the Prince, don't just take the Prince, because if you just put in the Skeleton Army, the Prince is gonna die within no time. He's gonna take forever to kill those guys. So definitely don't go for your troops that you love the most. Don't just right away go and pick that up. Just see which card is better against which. So the next thing is to play defensive. Of course, you don't want to rush in and do all the damage. That's not gonna work. You need to play in smart. You need to defend first, and then you need to push up. Because if you just go in all strong, the opponent is gonna come up with a decent counter if he has a counter for it. So say you put in 3 Musketeers, you put in a Fireball, you spend 9 elixir versus he spends just 4 elixir. Now you're on the crisis of elixir while the opponent is having a lot of elixir. He's gonna push on the other side and get that tower taken down. So first off, play defensive, and unless you're really confident about your deck, don't go and attack first. Just play defensive and make sure you're seeing what the opponent has in terms of his cards. So another thing you can actually do if you're actually losing at a point, you can just rush in on one side, and although you're losing, it doesn't really affect whether you're gonna win or not. You just want to put in all your troops on one side, and that way at least you have a chance of getting tower taken down. So that is something you can do if you're losing, but if not, just give your best and you probably will make it. So yeah, these are the tips, you guys. Make sure you give this a try. Of course, we got all the 9 victories. You need to make sure that you're having a good opponent. You actually have to have the teammate who is sitting beside you so that you can discuss and take the cards. So in that way, you have 8 cards. You can pick a perfect deck in order to actually get the victory. So again, going through the tips, pick up some really good win conditions like the Goblin Barrel, Graveyard, Balloon, Golem, Giant, Hog Rider, Royal Giant, Lava Hound, Elite Barbarians. These are the win conditions. Make sure you're picking something from these. Make sure you're picking these cards because the opponent might not have counters for it. So it is the Goblin Barrel, Graveyard, Inferno Dragon, Sparky, Elite Barbarians, Inferno Tower, Goblin Gang, Balloon, and the Princess. And make sure you're keeping in mind what you're giving the opponent. You don't want to give in a counter for your cards. So Princess and a Log, make sure you're picking the Log instead of the Princess, because if you're going to give away the Log, you're definitely not going to make the most out of the Princess. Make sure you're taking a spell. Spells are definitely going to help if the match is going in a draw. Just cycle through the spells and get the damage done. Aim for a balanced deck. Taking a win condition, support card, win condition, and then a spell. That should really help a lot. And then don't pick your favorite card. That is something I've seen a lot of people doing. Don't pick up Prince versus the Skeleton Army. That's not really good. And if you're planning to lose, if you're almost gonna lose, just drop in the troops on one side, one lane, and just go in all strong. And then even though you do that and you lose, it's pretty much game over. Just give it up. So if you're losing, put in all the troops in one lane and give it a try. Just surprise the opponent, in that way at least you can get it. And one last tip is play defensive rather than going in aggressive. So first see what the opponent has, and then you actually have to go in and attack. So these are the tips, you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed, and that way at least you get 9 victories. Thank you so much for watching till the very end. I'm Ayrus, and I'll be seeing you next time on the land. Goodbye.